blue is the wild bluebird, and like my other artworks that have looked at wild creatures and my interaction with them over the years, blue has been the most recent. But what blue had to teach me was how to be a nomadic person in the world. When my parents first got married and in the 50s, and they knew that because of my father's work in the military, they would have to travel through the South. At the time, they could not both wait for the laws and the country and the society to change and change quickly. They wanted to start a family, and they wanted to be able to have the freedom of movement. So their creative act was to make a decision that they would become mobile. And they purchased a New Moon trailer. And my father then drove that through the South with his growing family. And they didn't have to worry about where they would stay for a night or whether they had enough food on the road, and therefore bypassed the thinking of the nation at the time, and that was one of the segregation and Jim Crow. And that to me is astounding. So even though I wasn't born during that particular experience, the legacy of that, of being able to come up with these creative solutions despite the parameters that might surround you, that environment that was so oppressive and limiting, to find some way to say, you know, I'm going to get around this and I'm going to live my life. Being narrative and being biographical has always been an important component of my work, and I'm almost always in it, even if I am in someone else's portrait. Telling stories of the family tree is a portrait of my grandmother, and the trees form a very elemental structure with the cut and cropped branches of a house-like structure, and all of these compartments in the inside help reveal her story and her life, and all the leaves along the branches, my mother and her children, including myself. It is about my relationship to that individual.
Is that you?
And that's me.
How old were you?
Age 4. That's an image. Most of these images on the leaves are based off of the 1960 passport photo. This is one of my older brothers. I would say once again that I think that really everyone in the family is a very creative being. Some have chosen to actually practice it in their day-to-day, but I do think they are all very gifted, and they've found different types of mediums to express. More than 12 years ago, when I did an exhibition at the Watts Towers called Into the Dream Box, and I'm looking through one of the doorways, and it's a detail that's kind of blurred out, of a piece called House Dreams of an Urban Nomad. And it was one of the first of many series of small house sculptures that I did, broaching the subject of my experience. Years later, after my first introduction here to LA, I was able to get a grant. I actually got 2 grants, one from the California Community Foundation and one from a project called Finding Family Stories. And the combination of my proposal to find and portray my own family in life-size portraits, I was able to get both grants and do a very extensive exploration of 12,000 miles on the train, going to 7 states and 10 cities to finding various family members. And I included in that process, I found my father, who had been absent from the family for 25 years, my paternal grandmother, who had been absent from the family in more than 30, and my oldest brother, who had not been seen in more than 15 years. And once again, brought them back into a state of a family portrait. And here's some close-ups. This piece is the portrait of my mother. And this is one of the same pieces that ended up going to Houston at Project Row House in the piece called In Search of Mother Home. And it is titled Mother Home, a portrait of my mother. And on her tabletop of this portrait, inside the found mugs and teacups, are images of all of her children, all 9 of her children. The work is very much homegrown, but as in many of my homes, living fairly simply, it has always been, to me, the characteristic of my environment. And that just like Project Row House, where each member of the community helped build this new vital community out of those houses that were ready to be torn down. Living in one room has been a staple of mine for at least the past 20 years, that I've lived in a kind of one-room environment. So I look at that environment, and each one I treat how that particular environment will work. So whether I build in the bookcases all around the perimeter, the fact that I want that natural light to come in, and my primary pieces of furniture are very basic, and the things that are really quite portable in a way, or even incorporating nature. And when I found that piece of palm frond on the street after a storm, I was just astounded by the way in which nature crafted this organic form. The way that piece is made, you know, I have so much to learn. The Nomad is my newest work, and it's an installation here at the California African American Museum. And as you can see, it is a small house. And as an assemblage artist, I wanted to approach that classic simplicity of a house as an assemblage work that could be lived in, and for me, will be lived in. The Nomad live-in unit will be a hitch that is attached to a 1950s pickup truck. And on the pickup truck, it will also have its own housing. This is just one of the many evolutions of the design that I had done over the years in terms of looking at it. I actually did a lot of the finished details on the Nomad here in front of the public. So they watched me do this work. And number one, people were often very surprised. They were surprised that this piece was mine. And as a Black woman artist, they're also surprised what is often perceived as somewhat risky, this idea of going on the road. I named this the Nomad because throughout my childhood, in our family of 9 kids, we were often asked, why do you move so much? What's wrong with you that you have to move so much? And although there were certain economic reasons for that moving about from place to place, there was also a desire to find a place. And that place was more than just an idea, that there was a need to nomadically move through the world in search of that kind of next oasis. And every place it will be, people's curiosity will pull them to it. And I can introduce to, in a new way, without them ever stepping into a gallery or into a museum, but right there where they are at the moment, a way of living creatively. And that it's an essential part of all of our experience, whether we want to practice art or not. It can be an integral part to just living life.